The man who stopped. The street was quiet except for the sound of traffic in the distance. It was late afternoon, and the city carried that heavy mood where people rushed by, eyes locked on their phones, barely noticing anyone else. But in that ordinary silence, something extraordinary was about to happen. She stood at the corner, clutching an old bag against her chest. Her name was Emma. Her shoes were worn, her hands trembled slightly, and her eyes were red from crying. She had been walking aimlessly for hours, trying to hide her pain from strangers. Nobody noticed. Nobody ever did. But then a car slowed down. Not just any car. Sleek, dark, with windows rolled down halfway. The driver looked out, and it was him. Keanu Reeves. Emma blinked, unsure if she was imagining it. The man. Everyone spoke, about with respect the one known not just for his movies but for his quiet kindness, was suddenly in front of her. And he stopped. "Are you all right?" His voice was calm, almost like music. It wasn't loud, it wasn't sharp, but it reached her in a way no one's words had for years. Her lips parted but no sound came out. She wanted to say yes, to say she was fine, but the truth burned in her throat. She wasn't fine, not even close. Keanu didn't move closer at first. He respected her space, and that made her heart ache even more. In a world where people always pushed, here was someone who paused. "You look like you could use a little help," he added softly, his eyes kind but steady. Emma shook her head quickly. Pride, fear, shame, all mixed inside her. I'm okay," she whispered. Though, her voice broke in the middle. Keanu didn't argue. He didn't pressure her. He just nodded slowly as if to say he understood. But then he did something that changed everything. He pulled the car over, parked, and stepped out. There was no crowd around, no cameras, no flashing lights. It was just a man in simple clothes walking toward a stranger. Emma took a step back, nervous, but he stopped where he was, leaving space. "Sometimes," he said gently, "we say we're fine because we don't want to trouble anyone, but it's okay not to be fine. Really, it is." Her chest tightened. How could he see through her so quickly? The wind picked up, brushing her hair across her face. She tried to wipe her eyes discreetly, but he noticed. Keanu looked down at her, bag, frayed and nearly torn, and then back at her. "Have you eaten today?" he asked, as if it were the most natural question in the world. She froze. Nobody had asked her that in months. People passed by, maybe tossing coins if they felt generous, but no one truly asked. Her silence was answer enough. Keanu nodded. "There's a small place around the corner. Quiet, no crowd. Would you let me buy you something warm?" Emma wanted to refuse again, to say no. But her stomach betrayed her, growling softly, and her face turned red. And then it happened, the twist she never expected. A group of teenagers passed by, laughing loudly. One of them shouted, pointing at her, "Hey, she looks like a beggar!" The laughter cut through her like glass. She lowered her head, ready to shrink, ready to disappear into the pavement. But Keanu's eyes hardened. He turned to them, his voice steady but firm. "That's enough." The teenagers froze. There was no anger in his voice, only a weight that made them uncomfortable. They mumbled something and walked away quickly, their laughter gone. Emma stared at him, shocked. No one had ever defended her. Not once. "You don't deserve that," Keanu said softly, turning back to her. "No one does." Her throat tightened, tears slipping down despite her effort to hide them. For the first time, she whispered the truth. "I don't know where else to go." Keanu didn't reach out or try to touch her. He simply nodded, his eyes holding hers with quiet strength. "Then let's start with one step. Come with me, just for a meal, nothing more. You don't owe me anything." She hesitated, then finally nodded. Together they walked toward the small cafe at the corner. He opened the door, letting her step in first. The warmth of the room wrapped around her, and for the first time in months, she felt the smallest spark of safety. But what she didn't know was that this simple act, him stopping, him noticing, was only the beginning. The meal would lead to secrets revealed, memories resurfacing, and a journey that would test both of them in ways neither imagined. Because sometimes the smallest pause changes the entire course of a life. And she never expected Keanu Reeves to stop. But he did, and nothing would ever be the same again. The meal that changed everything. The cafe was small and quiet, filled with the warm smell of fresh bread and coffee, the kind of place most people walked past without noticing, but once inside it felt safe. Emma sat at the corner table, clutching her bag tightly on her lap as if someone might take it away. Her body was tense, every muscle stiff, as though she wasn't allowed to relax. Keanu noticed. He sat across from her, not too close, giving her space again. That simple act of respect made her chest feel heavy. Most people either ignored her or pushed too close. He was different. A waitress walked over with a smile, but Emma lowered her head, embarrassed. She wasn't used to being served. "Would you like something warm to drink?" Keanu asked gently. She nodded, her voice trembling. "Tea, please." Keanu smiled at the waitress. "2 teas and whatever warm food you recommend today." His voice was steady, calm, as though this moment was nothing unusual. But for Emma, it was everything. The waitress left, and silence filled the table. Emma kept her eyes on the wooden surface, afraid to meet his gaze. "You don't have to say anything," Keanu said softly. "Sometimes just being here is enough." She swallowed hard. No one had ever given her permission to simply exist without questions. Minutes later, the waitress returned with bowls of hot soup, fresh bread, and steaming tea. The smell alone made Emma's eyes water. She hadn't realized how hungry she was until now. Her hands shook as she picked up the spoon. She tried to hide it, but Keanu noticed. Without a word, he slid the napkin closer to her as if he knew she might spill. He didn't look at her with pity, only with quiet understanding. Emma took her first spoonful and warmth spread through her body. She hadn't felt that comfort in months, maybe years. Her lips trembled. She whispered, "Thank you." Keanu gave a small nod. "You don't have to thank me. Everyone deserves a warm meal." Those words hit her harder than she expected. Everyone deserves. It sounded so simple, yet so few believed it. After a while, Emma looked up, her voice soft but trembling with honesty. "Why did you stop?" Keanu leaned back slightly, thinking. "Because you looked like you needed someone to see you, and I know what it feels like when no one does." Her eyes widened. She had always thought people like him, famous, admired, rich, lived perfect lives. Yet his voice carried weight, the kind of weight only pain could leave behind. Emma bit her lip. Part of her wanted to ask more, but another part was afraid. Instead, she whispered, "People usually just walk past me." Keanu's gaze was steady, his voice low. People walk past because they're afraid to feel. It's easier to ignore than to care. But ignoring doesn't make someone's pain disappear. Her throat tightened. She wanted to cry again, but something inside her told her not to. The cafe door opened and cold air rushed in. A man stepped inside, his eyes scanning the room. When he spotted Emma, his face twisted in anger. Emma froze. Her body stiffened, fear racing through her veins. The man stormed toward them. "So this is where you've been hiding," he growled. Keanu's calm expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened, watching every move. Emma shrank back into her chair. "Please, not here," she whispered, her voice breaking. The man slammed his hand on the table, making the cups shake. "You think you can just disappear? You think you can just leave me?" Keanu stood slowly, his height and presence filling the space. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "You should lower your hand," he said quietly, steady, as stone. The man turned to him, scoffing. "And who are you? Stay out of this." Keanu didn't flinch. "I'm someone who won't let you scare her." The cafe went silent. Every customer turned to watch, the air heavy with tension. Emma's heart pounded. This man, her ex, the one she had run from, was the reason she had been on the streets, the reason she carried fear like a second skin. Her ex leaned closer, glaring. "She's mine. She comes with me." Keanu's jaw tightened, but his voice remained calm. "She's not an object. She chooses where she goes. And right now, she doesn't want to go with you." The man laughed bitterly, trying to mask his unease. "You don't know her. You don't know what she's done." Emma's chest tightened, shame flooding her. She wanted to disappear, but Keanu glanced at her, his eyes steady and kind. "I don't need to know her past to respect her present," Keanu said firmly. That sentence silenced the man. He wasn't used to anyone challenging him. His face burned with anger, but he realized the room was against him now. People were watching, whispering, ready to step in. He cursed under his breath, glaring at Emma one last time before storming out of the cafe, slamming the door behind him. Silence lingered, heavy and fragile. Emma's hands trembled and her eyes filled with tears she had tried so hard to hold back. You shouldn't have done that. He'll come back. He always does." Keanu sat back down slowly, his expression calm but his voice gentle. "Then we'll be ready. You're not alone anymore." Her chest broke open with emotion. No one had ever said those words to her, not once. She lowered her head, whispering through her tears, "Why are you helping me?" Keanu looked at her, his gaze steady, filled with quiet truth. "Because kindness is never wasted. And maybe because I see a part of myself in you." Emma's breath caught. For the first time, she felt that maybe, just maybe, her story wasn't over. But she had no idea the storm that was about to follow, because her past was darker than Keanu realized, and stepping into her life would pull him into dangers even he wasn't expecting. And yet, he didn't look away. Shadows from the past. The cafe had grown quiet again, but the silence felt different now. Emma's hands were still shaking, the spoon resting forgotten in her bowl of soup. She kept glancing at the door, terrified the man would burst back in at any moment. Every sound of footsteps outside made her flinch. Keanu noticed. He didn't speak right away. He just let her breathe, giving her time. But his presence was steady, like an anchor in a storm. When she finally lifted her eyes, he gave her the smallest nod as if to say, "You're safe for now." Emma tried to drink her tea, but her fingers trembled so much that she spilled a few drops on the table. Keanu quietly slid the napkin toward her again, without a word. It was such a simple act, yet it filled her chest with warmth she didn't understand. Finally, she whispered, "You don't know what you've done." Keanu leaned forward slightly, his voice calm. "Then tell me." She shook her head. "If I tell you, you'll regret ever stopping." But he didn't move, didn't flinch. His eyes stayed steady. "I don't regret stopping." Her throat tightened. No one had ever said that to her. She had always been a burden, a mistake, someone to be hidden. But here he was, saying the opposite. Tears slipped down her cheeks. She pressed her hands against her face, ashamed. "He won't stop," she whispered. "He never stops. I ran, I hid, but he always finds me. I don't have anything left, not even a name that's mine." Keanu's brow furrowed slightly. His voice was soft but firm. "Everyone has a name that belongs to them. No one can take that away." Emma shook her head again. "He already has. He ruined everything." Her voice cracked, and the story spilled out in fragments, like glass breaking. She had once lived in a small town, working in a bookstore. It wasn't much, but it was hers. Then she met him. At first he was charming, kind, protective. But slowly, he changed. The protection turned to control. The kindness twisted into cruelty. He took her money, her freedom, her dignity. When she tried to leave, he threatened her family. And when she finally ran, he chased her, dragging her life through the mud until no one believed her anymore. "He told everyone I was a liar," Emma whispered, her voice shaking. "He told them I stole from him. He showed fake papers, fake proofs. People believed him. Even the police. And when I tried to fight back, they called me unstable." Her shoulders trembled. "I lost everything. I lost my home, my job, my friends. I had nowhere to go. So I walked and walked until one day I stopped being seen. The weight of her words hung in the air. Keanu didn't interrupt, didn't rush her. He let her speak, his eyes never leaving hers. When she finally stopped, the silence was heavy. She expected judgment, disbelief, maybe even pity. But instead, Keanu simply said, "I believe you." Her breath caught. Her hands froze. "What? I believe you," he repeated, steady and calm. Emma shook her head, tears streaming down. "Nobody ever does." "Then it's about time someone did." She pressed her hands to her chest, the pain and relief colliding so fiercely she could barely breathe. But just as a small spark of hope lit inside her, the cafe door opened again. This time it wasn't her ex. It was two men in dark coats, their eyes scanning the room. They weren't ordinary customers. Their gaze was sharp, searching like hunters. Emma froze, panic shooting through her veins. She recognized them instantly. "No," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Not them." Keanu glanced at her, reading her fear. "Who are they?" he asked quietly. "He sent them," she whispered, clutching her bag tightly. "They always come when he can't. They take me back." The men moved closer, pretending to browse the shelves near the counter. But their eyes never left Emma. Keanu's jaw tightened. He leaned closer to her. "Emma, listen to me. You're not going anywhere with them." Her hands shook violently. "You don't understand. They won't stop. They'll follow us until they realize you're not alone anymore," he said firmly. Before she could respond, the two men approached the table. One of them leaned down, his voice low but sharp. "She belongs with us." Keanu stood, slowly, his presence calm but unmovable. "She doesn't belong to anyone." The men smirked, clearly amused. "You don't want to get involved, trust me." Keanu didn't raise his voice, but there was iron in his tone. "I'm already involved." The tension grew thick. Other customers watched nervously, unsure what to do. Emma's breath came fast, panic rising. But for the first time, she noticed something different inside her fear. She wasn't trembling alone. Keanu stood beside her, steady and calm, as if the danger didn't scare him. The men exchanged a glance. Then one of them sneered. "This isn't over. We'll find her again." They turned and walked out, leaving the cafe in heavy silence. Emma's body collapsed into the chair, her chest heaving. "You don't know what you've just started," she whispered. "They won't stop until they destroy everything." Keanu sat back down, his eyes steady. "Then let them try, because now they'll have to go through me." Emma's tears fell silently, her heart breaking open. She didn't know if she should feel safer or more afraid. But deep inside, a seed of something she hadn't felt in years began to grow. Hope. And yet, outside that cafe, shadows waited. Men on phones, whispers in cars, eyes watching. Her past was no longer just chasing her, it was closing in. The night of the warning, after the two men left, the cafe never felt safe again. Every time the door opened, Emma flinched. She couldn't finish her soup, though her body longed for food. Her mind kept racing, seeing their faces again and again. Keanu didn't push her to eat. He didn't lecture or give false promises. He simply sat there, steady, as though his quiet presence could hold back the storm. When they finally stepped outside, the city lights were beginning to glow. Emma pulled her coat tighter, her eyes darting to every corner, every shadow. Keanu walked beside her, calm but alert. "Do you have a place to stay?" Her silence was answer enough. She looked down, ashamed. "Then you'll stay somewhere safe tonight," he said softly. Emma shook her head quickly. "No, I can't. If they see me with you, they'll come for you too." Keanu stopped, turning to her. His eyes were steady, his voice gentle but firm. "Emma, they already know you're not alone anymore. Running won't change that. But standing together might." Her chest ached with conflict. Part of her wanted to keep running, to disappear into the shadows again. But another part, the part that had tasted warmth for the first time in months, wanted to trust him. She nodded faintly. He guided her to a small hotel on a quiet street. Nothing fancy, nothing that drew attention. When they stepped into the room, Emma stood frozen near the door, clutching her bag like a lifeline. "You can take the bed," Keanu said gently. "I'll stay in the chair." Her eyes widened. "You're staying here?" "Just for tonight," he assured her, "so you don't have to look over your shoulder." Emma's throat tightened. No one had ever offered her safety without asking for something in return. Hours passed. The city outside grew quieter, the distant hum of cars fading into night. But Emma couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her ex's face, heard his voice, felt his grip. She sat on the edge of the bed, her hands trembling. Keanu noticed. "Nightmares?" he asked softly. She nodded. "They don't stop, even when I'm awake." His voice was calm, steady. "You don't have to fight them alone anymore." Her tears spilled, silent but unstoppable. She pressed her hands against her face. "Why are you doing this? You don't even know me." Keanu leaned forward in the chair, his elbows resting on his knees. "Because I've been where you are. Maybe not the same way, but I know what it feels like to lose everything. I know what it's like to wonder if you matter." Emma lowered her hands, staring at him through blurred vision. "And did you?" His eyes softened. "Yes, because someone once showed me kindness when I didn't deserve it. And it changed my life." Her chest shook with quiet sobs. For the first time in years, she felt something break open inside her, not from pain, but from the possibility of healing. But just as she let herself breathe, a sound echoed from outside the window. A faint knock. Both of them froze. Keanu stood quietly, moving toward the curtain. He peeked outside, his eyes narrowing. Two figures stood near the alley, one of them speaking into a phone. Emma's body stiffened. "It's them," she whispered, her voice cracking. "They found me." Keanu turned back, calm but firm. "Lock the door. Stay behind me." Her hands shook as she obeyed. Her heart pounded so hard it hurt. The knocking came again, louder this time. A voice called from outside. "Emma, open the door. You know this won't end unless you do." Her breath caught. It was him, her ex. Keanu's voice was steady. "Don't answer, don't move." The handle rattled violently, the door shaking under the force. Emma pressed her hands against her ears, her body trembling. "Emma!" the man's voice roared. "You can't hide forever." Keanu stepped closer to the door, his voice calm but strong. "She's not hiding, she's choosing, and she's not choosing you." Silence. Then footsteps. Fading. The sound of a car engine starting. Emma's body collapsed onto the bed, shaking uncontrollably. "He won't stop," she whispered, broken. "He'll never stop." Keanu sat back down, his eyes steady. "Then neither will I." Her tears flowed freely now. She had lived so long with the belief that no one would ever stand for her. And now, sitting in this quiet room, she realized Keanu meant every word. But outside, her ex was not gone. He was waiting, planning, his anger burning, and the men he sent would not stop either. Emma had found a flicker of hope, but it was fragile, and the night was only just beginning, because sometimes the past doesn't knock once. It keeps knocking until walls break, and soon the storm would come crashing in. The breaking point, morning light crept through the thin curtains, painting the room in pale gold. Emma hadn't slept at all. Her eyes were heavy, her body aching from exhaustion, but her mind refused to rest. Every sound from the hallway had kept her awake, waiting for the door to burst open. Keanu had stayed awake too, though he didn't say it. He sat in the chair most of the night, his posture calm, as though guarding the room was as natural as breathing. His quiet strength had kept her from collapsing completely. When Emma finally stood, her legs felt weak. She moved to the small sink, to splash water on her face, staring at her reflection. The woman staring back barely looked like her anymore. Dark circles under her eyes, hollow cheeks, fear carved into every line. She whispered to herself, "You're disappearing." Behind her, Keanu's voice broke the silence. "You're still here. That means you're stronger than you think." Emma's throat tightened. She turned to him, her voice trembling. "You don't know how many times I thought about ending, and about just walking into the dark and never coming back." His eyes softened, pain flickering across them. "I know that feeling." Her breath caught. "You." He nodded slowly. "There were nights when I thought I couldn't keep going, when everything felt empty, when I believed no one would notice if I was gone. But someone noticed. Someone reminded me that even the smallest light can be enough." Emma's tears spilled. "And now you're that light for me." He didn't respond with words, only with a quiet nod, but his silence carried more than speeches ever could. Before the moment could settle, a knock rattled the door. Not soft, not gentle. Sharp. Deliberate. Emma froze, her body stiffening. Keanu rose instantly, moving to the door. "Who is it?" he asked firmly. A voice answered, low and cold. "Hotel management." Keanu glanced at Emma, his instincts telling him the truth. The voice was wrong. He didn't open. Slipped the identification. Under the door, silence, then the sound of a fist slamming against the wood. Emma gasped, backing away. "It's them! It's them!" Keanu's voice was steady. "Emma, take your bag. We're leaving through the back." Her hands shook, but she obeyed. Together, they slipped out of the small window that led to the fire escape. The morning air was sharp, the city alive with noise, but behind them the sound of the door breaking filled the air. They moved quickly, down the steps and into the alley. Emma's breath came fast, panic clawing at her chest. "Where do we go?" she whispered. Keanu scanned the street, his eyes sharp. "Somewhere they won't expect." They moved through winding roads, weaving past crowds, blending into the city. Emma clutched her bag tightly, her heart pounding with every step. After what felt like hours, they ducked into an old library, its stone walls towering above them. The air inside was quiet, filled with the smell of books and dust. Emma sank into a chair, her whole body trembling. "They're everywhere," she whispered. "No matter where I go, they find me." Keanu sat across from her, his eyes steady. "That's because you've been running alone, but you're not alone anymore." Her tears fell silently. "What if they hurt you? What if helping me destroys your life too?" Keanu leaned forward, his voice calm but unshakable. "My life isn't destroyed by helping someone. It's destroyed by looking away when I could have done something." The library felt like a sanctuary for a moment, but outside, danger stirred. The men weren't giving up. Emma's ex had power, money, and connections. He wasn't chasing her just for pride. He was chasing her to erase her completely, to make sure she never had a voice again. And now Keanu had stepped into the fire, with her. As Emma tried to steady her breathing, Keanu spoke softly, his eyes locked on hers. "Emma, listen to me. You've survived this long because you're stronger than you think. But surviving isn't enough anymore. It's time to fight. Back." Her heart froze. "Fight back?" "Yes," he said, his voice firm. "Because if you keep running, you'll never stop looking over your shoulder. But if we stand, if we face him, he can't take your life away anymore." Her hands shook. "I can't fight him. He owns everything. He controls everyone." Keanu shook his head. "Not everyone. Not me. Not you. Not anymore." The weight of his words sank into her chest. For the first time, the thought of facing her ex didn't feel impossible. Terrifying, yes. Overwhelming, yes, but not impossible. Still, her voice trembled. "What if we lose?" Keanu's eyes softened, but his tone stayed strong. "Then we lose fighting for something true. And that's better than living in fear." Emma's breath came slow, heavy. The library around them was silent, but inside her a war raged. Fear battled with hope. Pain battled with courage. And as she looked at Keanu, sitting steady, refusing to leave her side, she felt the balance shift. For the first time in years, she whispered, "Then I'll fight." Keanu gave the smallest smile, quiet but full of pride. But neither of them noticed the figure watching from outside the library window. A man with cold eyes and a phone in his hand, whispering into the receiver. "We found her." The library silence felt heavy, but Emma's heart was louder than any sound. Every beat shook her chest, every breath was sharp with fear. She had just whispered the words she thought she would never say, that she would fight, and now the universe seemed to be testing her promise. Because outside, shadows moved closer. Keanu noticed the shift in her eyes, the way she suddenly stiffened. He followed her gaze to the window, and in an instant he saw him. The man Emma had feared for so long. Her ex. He stood on the street, surrounded by two of his men, his eyes burning with cruel satisfaction. When he caught sight of Emma through the glass, his lips curled into a smile that made her skin crawl. "It's him," Emma whispered, her voice trembling. Keanu's voice was steady. "Then it's time." The front doors of the library creaked open, and the three men stepped inside. Their shoes echoed against the stone floor, each step deliberate. The few people inside quickly fled, leaving the library nearly empty, the tension thick as smoke. Her ex spoke first, his voice sharp and cold. "Emma, you've embarrassed me enough. You've run long enough. Come now, and maybe I'll make this easier for you." Emma's body froze, her instincts screaming to run. But then she felt Keanu's presence beside her, calm, steady, unshaken. "She's not going anywhere with you," Keanu said firmly. The man laughed bitterly, his eyes narrowing. "You don't even know her. She's nothing. Broken, worthless. Why ruin yourself for someone like her?" Emma flinched, his words slicing through her. She had heard them too many times before, each one leaving scars. But Keanu didn't flinch. His voice was calm, but it carried weight that filled the room. "She's not worthless. She's stronger than you ever realized. And she doesn't belong to you. She never did." The man's face twisted with rage. He stepped closer, his voice rising. "She belongs to me. Everything she is, everything she has. It's mine." Emma's chest shook. She wanted to sink into the ground, but Keanu turned to her, his eyes soft but steady. "Emma, look at me." She lifted her eyes slowly, trembling. "Say it," he whispered. "Say the truth." Her throat tightened. Fear wrapped around her like chains. But then she saw it, his unwavering faith in her, his belief that her voice mattered, and something inside her broke free. Her tears streamed down as she whispered, then shouted, "I don't belong to you. Not anymore. Not ever again." The words echoed through the library, louder than she expected, shaking the walls inside her heart. Her ex froze, shock flickering across his face. He had never heard her defy him like that. Keanu stepped closer, his voice low but sharp. "You heard her. Now leave." The men beside her ex moved uneasily, uncertain. For the first time, their loyalty cracked. "This isn't over," her ex hissed, his voice shaking with anger. But his threat felt weaker now, his power slipping through his fingers. They turned and left, their footsteps fading into the distance. The silence that followed was overwhelming. Emma collapsed into a chair, her chest heaving with sobs. But they were different this time, not of fear, but of release. Keanu knelt beside her, his hand resting gently on the table, not touching her but close enough for her to feel the safety in his presence. "You did it," he said softly. "You faced him. You fought back." Emma pressed her hands against her face, crying harder. "I was so afraid." "Being afraid doesn't mean you're weak," he said gently. "It means you're human. Strength is what you just did. You spoke when fear told you to stay silent." Her sobs slowly quieted. When she finally looked at him, her eyes were red but clearer than before. "I couldn't have done it without you," she whispered. Keanu shook his head. "You could have. You just needed someone to remind you you're not alone." She closed her eyes, the weight of his words sinking deep into her soul. The library lights glowed softly around them, and for the first time Emma felt the chains of her past loosening. She wasn't healed completely, not yet, but she had taken the first real step, and Keanu was still there, steady as always, AO, light in the darkness. Days later, the world outside moved on, but for Emma, life felt new. She found a shelter that helped her start again, and for once she walked inside with her head lifted, not lowered. Keanu didn't walk every step for her. He didn't take over her fight. But he had given her what no one else had, the belief that she mattered. And as Emma looked at him one last time before stepping forward into her new life, her voice was steady, quiet, but filled with truth. "Thank you for stopping." Keanu gave the smallest smile. Sometimes stopping is what changes everything. Emma turned and walked toward her future, no longer running, no longer hiding, and in her heart she carried the unshakable truth. She was not broken. She was not worthless. She was free.